in terms of like reevaluating any of the beliefs that are part of this constellation.
Okay, so here's the breakdown of this fucking mealy-mouthed, methamphetamine-induced tirade.
In this video, Andrew Wilson reacts to Destiny's debate with Jordan Peterson. Andrew Wilson dissects Destiny's horrible debate strategies as well as his nonsensical arguments. With that, let's watch Andrew Wilson surgically dismantle woke Destiny's illogical debate style and his worthless arguments.
All of this combined constellation stuff, and none of it is really given like any analysis, and you can't really push anybody from one way or another in terms of like reevaluating any of the beliefs that are part of this constellation. Okay, so
here's the breakdown of this fucking mealy-mouthed, methamphetamine-induced tirade. What Destiny's trying to get across here, and he could do it in seconds, is that people sometimes have incoherent political beliefs because if they don't start with a baseline ideology and stack up from there, they end up having incoherent, problems inside of their belief structure. I know that summary wasn't nearly as good. And then the Jenga, and what about the Jenga? We got the Jenga of political belief and the constellations in the political belief. You have to understand that sometimes they don't match up in the proper way, and I would think that they would have a proper epistemic foundation as we're moving the Jenga pieces up into the constellation of stars, and my mouth keeps on doing this, and it's
now the signal for released entropy, which would be a consequence of, say, violated fundamental beliefs, is a radical increase in anxiety, right? And a decrease in the possibility of positive emotion. And so people will struggle very hard against that, which is exactly the phenomena that you're describing.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree with what you said. Although,
so here's my
so I'm not sure why it's relevant to the issue I was pursuing.
I'm getting.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
Here's my issue. Okay, so when I'm trying to evaluate a situation, I like to think that I have I've got some insulation from the effects of what liberals think or what conservatives think. Is because on my platform, I don't necessarily have an allegiance to a particular political ideology. Like right now, I'm like center left to progressive, but I break really hard from progressive on certain issues. I think Kyle Rittenhouse is on the right. I think basically everything you guys are doing with indigenous people is insane, including.
Well, at least Andrew points out what we all already know, is that Desti could make his points 99% of the time with about 1/50th of the words he uses. The more I watch Destiny, the more I realize how he's just like most of these other leftist, progressive, idiot debaters that just talk and talk and talk without really saying anything. It has to be some insecurity with him or something that he needs to show how smart he is by using a lot of words or uncommon words. I don't know. But what Destiny's just pointing out here at the end is that he's trying to suggest that he's able to step back from liberal or right-wing bias because he's apparently the one person on earth that doesn't have bias. Everybody has bias. What the hell is he talking about? If he didn't have bias, 90+% of his arguments wouldn't be identically aligned with the mainstream liberal media and every establishment liberal politician on the planet. He has such a high opinion of himself, but for the life of me, I cannot figure out why. Anyway, let's get back to the video.
The complete mass grave hoax. I think that I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment. I have beliefs where I can break from my side, pretty hardcore because I am not like allegiant to a certain political ideology.
So, for one thing, nobody is completely unbiased. It's nonsense. Anybody who tells you that they aren't, or that their worldview is not informed by some particular set of beliefs, in this case for Destiny, it would essentially be degeneracy. That would be one of the informants of his belief. He can break away from political issues external to degeneracy, like the Second Amendment, which has very little to do with it, and break ranks. It doesn't hurt his neoliberal ideology. But no, he's as biased as they come. It just depends on what it is you're asking him about. But his worldview, his grounded worldview, his actual epistemology is that he's a moral nihilist. He kind of LARPs as a utilitarian, but he's a moral fucking nihilist, dude.
One thing that worries me with this constellation of beliefs thing is that sometimes when it comes to evaluating a particular policy or a particular problem, I feel like it's part of the constellation, and sometimes it inhibits people from like taking a step back and reasonably thinking about the issue. So when we're talking about climate change, you mentioned the WEF sacrificing tons of people, the UN, global elites, 5 times energy costs in Germany, genocidal people. I feel like this is part of like a whole thing where it's like, okay, well, let's take a quick step back and let's just like think rationally about this particular issue for one moment. Okay.
Well, you asked me what the motivation for anti-poor policies might be, so that's why I was.
Well, I did, but I got all of those things before I even asked that question. Because I think it's totally possible that somebody might say, okay, well, when you put carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it seems to cause an increase in surface temperatures. This has been happening.
I just want to let you guys know out there, for you aspiring debate bros, I'll do this.
If you like watching videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
Myself even, right? There is a good way to navigate sometimes these conversations where you don't want to firm up a position or say something as being particularly true, even as you're saying it's true. And that's with the word seems. There is a political philosophy out there. It's just a philosophy, but is being utilized more and more in the political sphere, called phenomenal conservatism. Has nothing to do with conservatism at all. What phenomenal conservatism is based around is what are called seemings. Something seems this way, you act as though it is this way until proof of the alternative is demonstrated to you. Now, that's a Reader's Digest version. But you'll see in almost all of Destiny's exchanges, and then you'll see it from Not So Erudite, you'll see it from many of these people. They say the word seems a lot because it doesn't marry them to a position. Instead, what it does is it gives them a way to slip out by saying, well, I just, it seemed that way. I'm not saying it is, it just seems to be. But the person...
Andrew does such a great job of distilling Destiny's style. And the more I think about it, it goes along with all of these guys like Pac-Man or Brian Tyler Cohen or, I don't know, Sam Cedar, any of the douchebag, lefty kind of progressive dopes. Seems is a good example, but they also word things very, very often in a way that allows them to take a position and tell you why you're wrong, but also, like he, using his words, doesn't marry them to that position. So if you say, well, you said this, you said, well, no, I said it seems that way, or however they worded it. So they get the best of both worlds here. I'm sure it's a good strategy if you're like on a high school debate team. It's a strategy to win, but it's not conducive at all to a substantive conversation where you can try to find some areas of agreement or some middle ground or come away learning something and the other person learning something. It's just a strategy to win. And dopes like Destiny are terrified of being pinned down that they actually made any specific declaration of what their point was, because they're so terrified that it can be used against them later. And also because they don't want to be made to look stupid later with their own words. So they try to create a scenario where you can never pin them down later in the conversation. Well, you said this. Anyway, you get it. And Andrew also said something really, really observant when he said that Destiny's ideology is rooted in moral nihilism. It's 100% true. He's, I think a loud and proud atheist like most of these a-holes are. And your values, your morals, your ideology, they're rooted in nothing if there's not a higher power or something bigger where we get our moral objectivity from. It's just subjective. So to give an extreme example, if you ask Destiny, why is murder wrong? He's like, well, because it's evil and you shouldn't do it. But why is it evil? If all of our values are not based on some source that's bigger than all of us, like God or Jesus, it's just subjective. So it's really something that they can't answer. And I've heard the smartest atheists on the planet talk themselves into circles answering that question, But ultimately, the answer is just like, well, it's just established in the world that that's not a good thing to do. And it's taking a life. It's like, yeah, but where does that come from? Like, who says it's bad then? Anyway, let's get back to the video.
External who's watching thinks that you are affirming that position. It's snaky tactic, one to watch out for.
From about the 1800s, and as we started to track surface temperatures, whether the thermometer is on top of the Empire State Building or in the middle of a field, it seems like there's an average.
It seems like there's. Why can't it just be there is a blank? Why does it seem that way?
Rise in temperatures, and people all around the world are observing this. In some places more than others. If you live in Seattle,
stop them when they do that. Actually stop them and make them firm up the positions. One of the reasons these people hate me, because I'll do this to them all the time, right? It just drives them fucking crazy. I'll stop them in the conversation right there. I'll say, wait, stop. Is it that way, or does it seem like it's that way? And they lose their fucking minds. They lose their mind. They don't even know what to say.
in 20 years.
And they lose their fucking minds. Drives them fucking crazy. I'll stop them in the conversation right there. I'll say, wait, stop. Is it that way, or does it seem like it's that way? And they lose their fucking minds. They lose their mind. They don't even know what to say.
That's the end of this clip. But as you can tell, they were about to get into a brief conversation about climate change there. If you want to watch the worst argument for climate change you've ever heard, again, while employing the tactics that Andrew's talking about, never really definitively making any statements, then, check out this video. It's on, I think Andrew's channel? It's called The Crucible. He's a principal. I see him on it a lot, but check that out if you want to see Destiny flounder even more. But we want to hear from you. What did you all think about Andrew Wilson's analysis of Destiny, his debate strategy, as well as his arguments? Let us know. Anyway, as always, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you on the next one.